Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be, well, it's exciting for me anyway, because I hope you guys can hear the difference. I've got a new microphone and it was after my last video and I was just reviewing it and my voiceovers were doing my head in. It was just a wee staticky sound in the background and I felt bad because I want to produce my best content, and without a microphone I was not producing my best content. Hopefully this means my content will be a little bit better. But yeah, let me know if you hear a difference or anything like that. Today's case was suggested by somebody who commented. I'll put the comment here. I'm not sure if they want their name shown, so to respect that, I'll just blur it out. But thank you so much for suggesting this case. It makes me so happy when people suggest cases. Comment, like, subscribe. You don't understand. Like, see when I get that notification, I'm like, I'm like fangirling. But anyway, my rambling needs to stop. Today's case is on South Africa's first documented female serial killer, Daisy de Melker. Let me know what you guys think of today's video. How did I cover it? Let me know in the comments. If you have any suggestions, any cases that you want me to cover, DM them to me or comment. Thank you so much again for all of the support. We're so close to 500 subscribers and that's just insane. Thank you again. Daisy de Melker was born on the 1st of June 1886 at Seven Fountains near Grahamstown. She was one of 11 children. When she was 12, she went to Bulawayo to live with her father and two of her brothers. 3 years later, she became a boarder at the Good Hope Seminary School in Cape Town. She returned to Rhodesia, which was now Zimbabwe, in 1903. But apparently, de Melker found rural life unexciting. It wasn't long before she returned to South Africa and enrolled at Berea Nursing Home in Durban. It is believed that de Melker learnt about poisons when she worked as a nurse. During one of de Melker's holidays in Rhodesia, she met and fell in love with a young man named Bert Fuller. He was a civil servant in the Native Affairs Department at Broken Hill. They planned to marry in October 1907. However, Fuller contracted black water fever and died, with Daisy at his bedside on that same day they had planned to marry. Fuller left a will of £100 to his fiancée. In March 1909, about 18 months after the death of Bert Fuller, Daisy married William Alfred Cowell, a plumber, in Johannesburg. She was 23 and he was 36. The couple had 5 children, 4 of whom died. The 4 twins, who died in infancy. The 3rd child died of an abscess on their liver, and the 4th suffered convulsions and bowel trouble and died at the age of 15 months. Their last and only surviving child was Rhodes Cecil. He was born in June 1911. Many years later, in the early morning of the 11th of January 1923, William Cowell became ill, soon after taking Epsom salts prepared by his wife. The first doctor who attended him did not consider his condition serious and prescribed a bromide mixture. However, not long after the doctor had left, Cowell took a turn for the worst. His condition deteriorated rapidly. De Melker summoned the neighbours to help and called for another doctor. Cowell suffered unbearable pain when the second doctor arrived. He foamed at the mouth, was blue in the face, and screamed in anguish if anyone touched him, and he experienced this pain up until he died. The doctor obviously saw Cowell's symptoms and he was like, this is just not adding up. He suspected that it was strychnine poisoning and refused to sign the death certificate. A post-mortem was subsequently performed by the acting district surgeon, Dr. Fergus. He ruled the cause of death to be chronic nephritis and cerebral hemorrhaging. Demolka, the sole beneficiary of her husband's will, inherited £1,795. Demolka was now 36 years old. 3 years to the day after the death of her first husband, Demolka married another plumber. His name was Robert Sproat, and he was 10 years older than her. In October 1927, Sproat became violently ill. He was in excruciating pain and suffered severe muscle spasms, similar to those experienced by William Cowell. However, unlike Cowell, he recovered. However, a few weeks later, he suffered a second attack after drinking some beer in the company of Demolka and his stepson Rhodes. He passed away on the 6th of November 1927. Dr. Malinik, the attending physician, certified that the cause of death was hardening of the arteries and cerebral hemorrhaging. This time, no autopsy was performed. Following Sproat's death, Demolka inherited over £4,000 plus a further £560 paid by his pension fund. That must have been insane money back in the day. On the 21st of January 1931, Demolka married for the third time. Her husband was already a widower, Sidney Clarence Demolka. Just like her two previous husbands, he too was a plumber. By this time, Rhodes, the son, was 19. His sister-in-law, Aileen Demolka, thought of him as lazy and remarked that he was often unwilling to get up for work in the morning. However, another account at his mother's trial described him as bright and conscientious. A girl who met Rhodes at a party a few weeks before his death maintained that he was a real gentleman. However, in late February 1932, Miss Demolka travelled from Germiston to Turfentine to obtain a quantity of arsenic from a chemist there. She used her former name, Sprott, and claimed that she required the poison to destroy a sick cat. Less than a week later, on Wednesday the 2nd of March, Rhodes took ill at work after drinking coffee from a thermos flask which his mother had prepared for him. A fellow worker, James Webster, also became violently ill. Webster, who had only drunk a small amount of the coffee, luckily recovered within a few days. But unfortunately, Rhodes died at home at midday on the following Saturday. A post-mortem took place, and the cause of death was given as cerebral malaria. Rhodes was buried at New Brixton Cemetery the following day. There was no clear explanation to why Demolka decided to kill Rhodes. In the murders of her two husbands, the motive was clear. It was financial gain. But why kill her son? Many assume that Rhodes had been under the impression that he would come into inheritance at the age of 21. Maybe he was demanding more than she could give him, or maybe wanted to give him, and was becoming a burden to her. Many also assume that the answer is she just didn't like him. Maybe she saw him as a disappointment to her. I mean, his sister-in-law, Aileen, said he was lazy, and he often didn't want to get up for work in the morning. It's alleged that Demolka had pampered him all his life, but he rarely showed her any consideration in return. On the 1st of April, Miss Demolka received £100 from Rhodes' life insurance policy. After these multiple deaths, William Sproat, which was her dead husband's brother, had become suspicious. Eventually, he passed on his suspicions to the authorities. On the 15th of April, the police obtained a court order permitting them to exhume the bodies of Rhodes Cowell, Robert Sproat, and William Cowell. The first body to be exhumed was that of Rhodes Cowell. The corpse was found to be in a very good state of preservation. This is quite common if there is a presence of arsenic in large quantities. The government analyst was able to find traces of arsenic in the viscera, backbone, and hair. Even though the bodies of William Kewell and Robert Sprott were largely decomposed, traces of strychnine were found in the vertebrae of each man. Their bones also had a pinkish discoloration, suggesting that the men had either taken or ingested the pink strychnine. Remember James Webster, Rhodes' colleague? Well, traces of arsenic were also found in his hair and fingernails. A week later, the police arrested Miss Demolka and charged her with the murder of all 3 men. Public interest in the Demolka case was massive, and the newspapers gave the story a great deal of coverage. The turpentine chemist whom Miss Demolka had bought the arson from to kill her son recognized her from a newspaper photograph. However, he knew her as Miss D.L. Sprott, as this is the name that she had signed the poison register as. The chemist went straight to the police to give this evidence. The Demolka trial lasted 30 days. Queues of onlookers lined up for hours each day before the proceedings began. On the final day of the trial, some spectators who had waited overnight to ensure a place in the court sold their seats for up to £30 each. 60 witnesses were called for the Crown and less than half of this number for the defence. To present the forensic evidence, the Crown employed the services of Dr. J.M. Watt, an expert toxicologist and a professor of pharmacology. Before the final verdict was given, the judge pointed out that the state had been unable to prove conclusively that William Kewell and Robert Sprott had died of strychnine poisoning. He said, "It does not convince me, nor does it convict the accused." However, on the 3rd count, he had come to the, quote, inescapable conclusion that Miss Demolka had murdered her son. Evidence towards this was: Rhodes Kewell had died of arsenic poisoning. The coffee flask held traces of arsenic. Prior to Rhodes's death, the accused had put arsenic into the flask. And lastly, the defense of suicide was unsustainable. When the judge finally turned to pass this sentence on to Miss Demolka, the court reports that her face was white, and for a moment all of the strength seemed to have left her body. The judge said, "You have been found guilty of the murder of your son, Rhodes Cecil Kewell. Do you have anything to say before one pass sentence of death on you?" Apparently, the court went silent. She replied, "I am not guilty of poisoning my son." The judge replied, "There is only one sentence one can pass," and the judge sentenced her to death by hanging. On the morning of the 30th of December, 1932, Daisy Demolka was executed by hanging. Well, that is the end of today's video. Let me know what you think. I hope everybody is staying happy, safe, and healthy. Hopefully you guys will come back and watch some of my future videos. Thanks so much for now. Bye!